Shalom, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai Bahashim Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and salutations to the Akim out there. Spread this truth like wildfire in all truthfulness and in all sincerity. Alright, I got this article. I'm going to title this live. I'm going to title this video, They Hold Themselves Not Guilty. So-called white masked teen accused of trying to drown so-called black boy is charged with attempted murder, but not a hate crime. Why? The alleged victim told investigators that another teen called him George Floyd and laughed while the suspect tried to drown him. This is that Edomite, the so-called white boy. A 14-year-old so-called white boy indicted last month on a, indicted last month on a charge of attempted murder of a so-called black teen that he is accused of luring to a pond, throwing rocks at, and attempting to drown, was released from jail this week to the custody of his father after a court appearance. John Sheeran is also facing a charge of assault with a dangerous weapon over the July 19th incident at Goose Pond in Chatham, Massachusetts, which police say Sheeran dunked the victim underwater several times, knowing the so-called black teen could not swim, and called him racial slurs, as another friend laughed and called the teen George Floyd. Unquote. The 15-year-old victim told police that children and the other boy also threw rocks at him repeatedly, and the attacks stopped only after another youth on the beach went to the water to intervene, according to officials. Other teens nearby told cops they witnessed the incident. The incident is not clear whether the second teen, who was also so-called white, will face charges. Sheeran's attorney Kevin Reddington told the Boston Globe that the charges against his client are "quote unquote" over the top and downplaying the teen's actions, equating them to "quote unquote" horseplaying among kids. They were in "quote unquote" they were in the water horseplaying and it got out of control clearly, Reddington said. I understand the basis of the judge's decision and we are appealing to the Superior Court and hoping to get him back in school, quote unquote. The allegations seem to fit the definition of a hate crime, one expert said, but thus far no such charges have been filed against Sheeran. Why no hate crime charges? Margaret Drew, an associate professor at UMass Law School, said that though hate crime charges can be added later, she questions why they were not initially applied to the case given its severity. Massachusetts law defines a hate crime as "quote unquote" any criminal act coupled with overt actions motivated by bigotry and bias, "quote unquote," including acts motivated by racial, religious, ethnic, or sexual orientation, prejudice, among other things. A hate crime conviction carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. We would need to know whether the assistant district attorney who was before the grand jury requested hate crimes. Drew, quote unquote, Drew told Yahoo News, noting in a recent precedent set in the case in Salem, Massachusetts, in which a group of teens was charged with civil rights violations after initially facing other charges for allegedly assaulting another group based on the presumed sexual orientation in April. I noticed in the case in Salem, quote unquote, which was a gender identity based incident. Hate crimes were added to the charges later, quote unquote. So they did that for someone who was a part of the Alphabet crew who got assaulted for being a part of the Alphabet crew. But why are they not doing it for? Why are they not doing it for you, Jake? Sharon is being tried as a useful offender, according to NBC Boston, a designation that gives straight prosecutors discretion for seeking an adult sentence for children between 14 and 17 years old who are accused of serious offenses, including a charge that involves the infliction or threat of serious bodily harm. Unlike juvenile hearings, the proceedings under this statute are open to the public. Prosecutors said that just hours after the initial near drowning incident, Sheeran got into a fight with a teen of Asian descent, punching him in the face and calling him slurs. Sheeran should remain in jail, prosecutors argued, calling him a danger to the community. He's a violent child, quote unquote, and we've heard no mitigating factors. Assistant District Attorney Adi Moriarty said in court. This violence is unfortunately targeted toward children of other races, children that don't look like them, quote unquote. Drew, the UMass professor, took aim at Reddington's characterization of his client Sheeran's actions, calling it dangerous. "Quote unquote, these were kids that had the intention of violating the body of a so called black boy and nearly drowning him," she said. So this is not horsing around. This is not rolling around on the lawn wrestling. The danger to me is when the seriousness of these acts is minimized. That does nothing to empower those who lean towards violence. If there's no boundaries drawn immediately, this is just going to get worse. And then they're going to throw the anti-sim. They're going to use the anti-sim card in the alphabet card here, talking about anti-sim and harassment of the alphabet crew. It says Massachusetts, in particular, saw the nation's largest, highest number of so-called white supremacist propaganda incidents in 2022. The extremists have targeted Massachusetts with the intention to instill fear and intimidation through their stunts, propaganda, and increasingly the aggressive demonstrations. Quote, unquote. I think that's quote unquote Peggy Shakur, Deputy Regional Director of ADL Marine, said in a statement. Racism controls so much of what we do, quote unquote. Many critics have highlighted the role a disjointed justice system plays in incidents like this, which so-called black Americans have historically experienced in the U.S., particularly for more heinous crimes like murder. People who kill so-called black people, for instance, are less likely to face the death penalty than those who kill so-called white people. A 2020 report from the Death Penalty Information Center found. The report noted that since the death penalty resumed in 1977, so-called black defendants have been executed for killing the so-called white victim, or only 21 so-called white defendants, my bad, have been executed for killing the so-called black victim, even though so-called black people are disproportionately the victims of crime. Findings draw a direct line from how lynchings in the slavery era have evolved into discrimination in the current justice system. As a country, we don't acknowledge the depth of our racism Racism controls so much of what we do, what we think, whether it's conscious or not. Jews said, quote unquote, plays into almost everything that happens in this country. And that's because the Edomites run America. So they have the power to hold themselves not guilty. And I'm gonna get Zechariah 11 and 4. Thus saith Yahweh my power, feed the flock of the slaughter. Verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say blessed be Yahweh, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. So they this was clearly a hate crime, but Esau held himself not guilty. You know, but when it came to them alphabet boys, man, the alphabet crew, when it came to them, oh, they added a hate crime offense later. You see how there's a double standard there, because this devil, he has a perpetual hatred for you. Ezekiel 35 verse 5, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, and the time that their iniquity had an end. So these devils have a perpetual hatred for you tribes, and they show it in many ways. This is one way that they show it. But hey, you devils, y'all got a lot to pay for. This is just adding on to the tab. You Edomites, you so-called white people, you just keep adding on to that tab, and y'all are gonna pay. I believe the next verse 6. Therefore, as I live, say Lord power Yahweh, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. He tried to kill, tried to murder that Jake, because he's a Jake, because he has that perpetual hatred. Because Esau, you kept that anger forever. Amos 1 and 11. Thus saith Yahweh, for three transgressions of Edom, and for four I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and kept his wrath forever. Esau, Edom, kept his wrath forever. And y'all gonna pay for that. Revelation 18:6. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled, fill to her, fill to her double. So y'all gonna get double, cause Second Thessalonians 1:6. Seeing it is a righteous thing of the Most High Power Yahweh to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. So there will be recompense for this. Ezekiel 25 and 14. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Lord Power Yahweh. But with that, I hope this video was edifying. I want to give all praises to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakah Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and salutations to the Akim out there spreading this truth like wildfire. in all truthfulness and in all sincerity. Shalom, stay strong. Abba Ball, stay strong. Abba Ball, death to Babylon. Abala Adawayim, death to these Edomites. Abala Gawayim, death to these heathens. Abala Yabim Nawa, death to the rest of our enemies. The rest of our enemies being 2/3 of these so-called black people, Latinos, Native Americans, and Israelite foreigners here in the States, as well as wicked Israelites scattered to the four corners of the earth. Shalom, stay strong. Yasharallah forever, and a Baba Ball. Shalom.